everyone, and welcome to Plant-Based Eating. I'm Robyn, and I'm so glad you're here. We have a live audience today, which is really exciting for me. It's kind of a new thing, so this is really fun. So we have you at home. Thank you for being here at home. And those in the audience, thank you for being here as well. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a little bit of talking about what plant-based eating is, okay? Because there's a lot of information out there, and so I was going to give you kind of a plant-based 101, okay? That's kind of the basics of it today, and then we'll jump into doing some cooking, okay? We're going to make a easy black bean salad today. You don't have to even start the oven for it, okay? So let's get started. We'll show you some of the slides. And okay, so what I want to show you is what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about what is plant-based nutrition. Why WFPB, that's the abbreviation you'll often see. It means whole foods, plant-based, why it's beneficial. And we're then going to talk about really what you need to do to get started. And because the idea of it is, depending on what your health is depending on maybe how you decide to add the plants and add this way of eating back into your lifestyle, okay? So let me jump into what is whole foods plant-based? Well, it's foods derived from plants, basically, and that includes your whole grains, your legumes, and in the legumes it's your beans and your peas and your tofu, and those kind of your protein foods, so to speak. It's fruits, it's vegetables, nuts, and seeds. So basically, everything that started out being a plant and is now, what we're eating. What you won't see typically in it is a lot of the animal products, okay? And we'll dive into a little bit more about why we lean into that a little bit more, why we lean into the plants, okay? And really it's about being minimally processed, because the more you process the foods, they become more refined, right? And they're not whole anymore. That's the whole foods plant-based idea. Does that mean you can never eat processed foods ever again? Of course not. But it really depends on what are your goals with your health, okay? So as you start processing foods, let me give you an example. You take kale, okay, big leafy kale, and now you turn it into kale chips and in a bag that you would buy at the store, okay? Now what happens to that kale? They've now salted it, they've now oiled it, and they've baked it and probably put in a bunch of preservatives to put it in that bag to then get to you, okay? So would you be better off taking the kale and baking it yourself? Of course. More labor is involved with that though, right? Or just eating the kale on its own. That's the difference between being processed and not processed, okay? Is it still maybe a better choice than eating chips? I don't know, you have to read the back of your labels, and we're going to talk about that as we go through, okay? So the one thing I wanted to mention also is, even if it's labeled whole foods, plant-based on the outside, doesn't always mean it's healthy, okay? So we'll talk about that as well. So why do we want to eat these foods, okay? Why do we want to lean into this whole foods plant-based sort of dietary pattern? And it's because this way of eating really reduces chronic diet-related diseases. If you think about that term, diet-related disease, what does that mean? The disease that happens is caused by what we're eating. And that's what you think about: cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, right? A lot of our GI issues are all related to the foods we eat. So it matters what we put into our bodies. It's almost like putting in premium gas into your car, and it goes really well, and what you put into your body affects how well it performs, okay? And our bodies, we want to take good care of them because they need to carry us in to our long lives, hopefully, right? Okay, so the benefits of eating whole foods plant-based is it really does boost your immunity, okay? We just came through a couple years of being worried about coronavirus and our immune systems, and one of the best way you can boost your immune system is by fueling your body well. And that means eating the real food, not just the vitamins, right? Not just in a pill, but eating the real food, because it brings so many things with it. The whole foods it helps your GI system, right? There's a lot of fiber in whole foods, right? And fiber really keeps your GI system healthy. All those little microbes in your gut, they have a job to do. They produce vitamin K, they keep everything moving through, they, keep you really, all your, intestines really healthy. So, and that's the thing. You want to keep everything moving through. That's a positive thing, okay? So eating foods with a lot of fiber, which come naturally with whole foods, plant-based, is really beneficial for you. Eating this way really helps lower cancer risk, okay? Because you think about it, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, all of those things, okay, are in whole foods plant-based. The same thing with reducing inflammation. So much talk about inflammation these days, right? We know chronic related disease has a lot of inflammation with it, okay? So if you're eating these foods, you're lowering your inflammation already just because you're not putting inflammatory foods into your body. And it's super easy to maintain your weight. You can eat, so much food because these foods you're choosing are naturally lower in calories and high in fiber. So you eat a whole bunch and it fills you up and it's really hard to overeat, okay? So those are the reasons you really want to be thinking about why you want to start adding more plant-based foods into your diet, okay? How do you get started? Okay, the first thing is find your why. Why do you want to do it? Okay, this is a really big one. With my clients, we do this right from the get-go because there's going to be obstacles along the way. Okay, you're going to want a cheeseburger, okay, and it's not necessarily plant-based, right? Does that mean you can never have that? Of course not. But is that going to promote health? Not so much. So if you find your why do you want to eat better? Why do you want to have better health? That really helps you get through your obstacles as they come up. So for many people, it is they want to play with their grandchildren. They want to travel without carrying a bunch of pills with them. They want to, age well. They want to age well. They don't want to age. Okay, let's face it. We're not getting any younger. We're as young as we're ever going to be right now, okay? And so, but we want to age well and be functional as we age. We do have a say over that, and it starts by being proactive and finding this why, okay? The next thing is start with small changes. Do you have to go out and buy all vegetables and get rid of everything and stuff them in your thing and start eating just salads? Of course not, okay? Of course not. Really, it's like, can you though say, okay, I'm going to start with breakfast. And instead of eating, maybe it's the 2 eggs and bacon and toast with a lot of butter on it, you're like, maybe I'm going to start swapping in some oatmeal with berries. Okay, and maybe I'll use a little almond milk instead of dairy milk. Okay, it's as simple as that. And you do that every day in 1 week. And you're like, wow, I did 5 days. Or maybe you just stop using the butter on your toast. And maybe you do egg whites instead. And if you're going to do eggs, maybe you start adding vegetables to them. Because when you do animal products like eggs or meat or dairy, there's 0 fiber in it. Okay, 0. And so you want fiber in your diet. Okay, and so if you're going to choose to eat those things, add some vegetables. I call it veg it up, okay? Because you can definitely add some fiber into that and make it a healthier choice for you, all right? So really, you have to decide where do you want your health to be, and then how much do you want to change to have it be there, okay? To get to that goal, all right? And then the other thing is, how else do you get started? You start looking at your favorite recipes, okay? Because there's no reason you have to go out and find all new foods. When I transitioned our family, I have 4 children and a husband, and we transitioned 12 years ago now, completely plant-based. And I wanted my kids to still enjoy eating, okay? And so I took some of our family favorite recipes and I changed them. Our chicken pot pie now became lentil pot pie. Our spaghetti dinner now had more vegetables in it instead of a meat sauce. Okay, I added some portobello mushrooms and other things. So it's not like you're only eating salads. There's plenty of things you can change that are going to actually be healthier for you and familiar, and have the same flavor profiles that you really enjoy. Okay, and then when you start small, that's a big thing. Then you revamp your favorite recipes. It's almost effortless to make the transition. It really is. And then the last one thing to how to get started is, I really want you to start reading your labels. Okay, really read your labels. You need to know what you're eating, okay, and really understand how to determine if that food should really earn a spot in your pantry. So I have this thing that every food has to earn its spot, okay, and really bring something to the table, so to speak, all right? And so I want you to start learning to read labels. And so I want to go into that with you, okay? So what I want you to look at when you look at your labels is, if it has a label on it, there's some processing involved. Okay, that's right off the top. Okay, it's just how it works. I want you to start checking for saturated fats and added oils. Okay, and I'll show you an example in a minute of what a label looks like and what I want you to look for. And then there's also something called the ingredients and allergen lists. That's a really quick way to kind of determine what's in the foods that you're eating. And so if you're really going to go all in and you want to start really kind of avoiding the animal products, cheese and meat, and meat's a little easier, but like dairy products, butter products, that are also dairy products, it's really a quick way you can look is on the allergen list, and I'll show you how to do that. And then again, have this question in the back of your mind: does this qualify for my pantry? Does this food item I'm reading the label on, is it going to promote my health? Is it going to help me be healthier? Okay. Now, this is okay. If you're like, yeah, probably not, you might say, but do I really want it? Is it going to add enjoyment to my life? Then you might say, all right, I'm going to let it in because I really enjoy this food. I have plenty of clients that say, I have to have chocolate every day, okay? And I'm like, okay, so how can we find a healthier chocolate for you? And dark chocolate, it meets the ticket, okay? And then not overeating it is a big thing. So we find chocolate granola that they can eat, so that now it has fiber in it, right? There's two tricky ways that you can incorporate these favorite foods and make them healthier for you, okay? So let's jump into what the labels look like. So here's a basic nutrition facts label, okay? And when you're eating whole foods plant-based, we don't really worry about calories. I explained there, because we're eating a lot of nutrient-dense foods, meaning they're not very calorie-dense. What I want you to start with, because we're starting small, remember, I want you to really focus on the fats. Because we know there's such a huge correlation between saturated fats and cholesterol and a lot of chronic related diseases like cardiovascular disease, like high cholesterol, and even type 2 diabetes, okay? And blood pressure, all those things. So let's focus there. Let's start there. So if you look at the fats label, you'll see there's a total fats, okay? And then the next label, you'll see saturated fats. We want that to be as low as possible, okay? The American Heart Association, it's been coming down over the years, but they are now at the point saying 6% of your calories or less should be from saturated fats. What does that mean? That's about, 11 grams, okay? And I think there's roughly 20 grams in a hamburger patty, okay? So keep that in mind. And then the next one is, trans fats. You want those 0 if possible. And so if you look at this particular label, I think it has 7-8 grams of total fat in it. I can't see it completely. Okay, and then you subtract out the 4.5 grams. That means those other fats that are in there are from another source. Okay, which are probably polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fats. Okay, slightly better for you. They are, because they're not saturated, but they're still adding more calories. Fats are the highest calories you can possibly add. They are 9 calories per gram versus carbohydrates or proteins, which are 4 calories per gram. So right at the top, you're adding double the calories. So if weight is one of your issues that you really want to work on, just keep that in mind, okay? And so, so I want you to start focus on the fats. Then you start going down into, let's look at the fiber, dietary fiber. We want more fiber in it. What happens with processing a lot of times is the fiber gets taken out, okay, and they'll sometimes add it back in. So start looking at that. And then you want to, really try to avoid added sugars as well and added salt. So salt should really be, we're allowed to stay healthy, about a teaspoon a day, okay, 2,300 milligrams, okay, it's not a lot. And if you're eating anything from a can, anything from a package, you're getting sodium in those off the bat. Not even what you're counting with your salt shaker, okay? So just keep that in mind. Can you buy reduced sodium beans? Of course you can. Can you cook them from scratch? Of course you can. So there's varying ways that you can control that, okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so that's what I want you to really start focusing on when you look at your labels, okay? Here is an example of an ingredient list and an allergen label. So this is why I think the ingredient list is so important, because we know there is added fats in that last label, right? We know there's saturated fats. Well, where do they come from? Because it might not be an animal product, okay? Well, I've highlighted in here palm oil. Palm oil is actually very high in saturated fat, as is coconut oil. So you want to avoid coconut oil and palm oil because those raise your saturated fat content, okay? Now if you go down a little lower, you'll see it has whey in it. Whey is kind of a code word for dairy. So one quick way when I'm reading labels, I will go to the allergen list because there's 8 common allergens, and it's wheat, milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, soybeans, fish, and crustacean like shellfish, okay? They have to list those by law. So if you go to the allergen list, you can see right off the top, it's like, okay, the allergens in here are wheat, milk, and soy, okay? I don't have a problem with wheat. I do gluten, you may not, and so that's a quick thing to look at. If you're avoiding soy, you know that, but I look for milk, okay? Because milk sneaks into so many different things. And so this is how I quickly read my labels, okay? All right, so here's some steps to better health. I want you to really, if you're up for the challenge, I would say incorporate more fruits and veggies and whole grains and legumes into your meals. Like I explained earlier, if you're going to scramble your eggs, throw in a handful of spinach. I put a handful of spinach into everything. I like to say I cook by color. If it's got to have more colors in it to make it, really appealing. Eat a rainbow. When I work with kids, eat a rainbow of foods, because all those colorful foods, that means they have tons of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals, and those are the things your body really needs, okay? So that's the first thing. Figure out ways you can kind of start sneaking in some vegetables and some fruits. And if you have type 2 diabetes and you're avoiding fruit, that's old news. You can eat fruit, okay? What comes with those fruits is so much more beneficial than what they used to think is the spike in your blood sugars, okay? Because you're getting fiber and you're getting so many nutrients and antioxidants. And it's the perfect food when you want something sweet. All right, so fruits really, work those into your diet. Now, especially with type 2 diabetes, some will spike you a little bit more than others, and so you have to kind of monitor and see, but berries are a really good addition, okay? The next thing is I want you to really, like I talked about, start reducing those foods with saturated fats and added oils, okay? So read your labels, but also remember how you cook makes a difference, okay? So if you're sauteing an onion, what do we normally do? 2 tablespoons of oil in there, right? Right at the top, you've added calories and fats, because even olive oil, my friends, I know we all love olive oil, but even olive oil is 16% saturated fat, okay? So you're still getting it in there. It's less, it's better than lard, but it's definitely, you're still getting some. So depending on where your health is what you'd want to decide what you're going to, where you're going to draw that line for yourself, okay? Avoid the processed foods, okay? If you can, try to avoid the processed foods, because typically they're high in salt, they're high in sugar, they're high in fat, okay? Really, if you can avoid it, try to. Again, adapt your favorite recipes. This is the first step I really want you to do. Go home, look at some of your favorite foods and say, what would Robyn do? She'd probably add a handful of spinach, right? So kind of think about that and to see is there a way you can add some fiber into some of your favorite foods. Maybe you can replace, my favorite thing is in spaghetti sauce, I use lentils. Cook up the lentils first, throw them in, and there's a lot of actually soy type products, something called TVP, it's texturized vegetable protein, that when you throw it in, my clients use it all the time, and it looks like hamburger in the sauce, so, and it's adding a boost of protein as well. A lot of products that you can use that way. With that said, I don't want you to lean in too hard to a lot of these faux meats, because a lot of them had added oils into them. Use them as transition foods, especially like the fake cheeses and stuff. Definitely use them as transition foods, but eventually you want to start reducing those, depending on where your health is, okay? Depending on where your health is. And then remember, small changes make a difference, okay? You don't have to go grand. Small changes make a difference to your health. Small, consistent changes really make a difference. Just like when you exercise, going out and exercising 3 days straight and then not for 3 weeks, not going to be as much benefit to you as if you go out every day for 30 minutes or every other day for 30 minutes, okay? It's the same with your diet. It's the same with how you eat, okay? You want to do small changes over time, okay? And be consistent with it. Okay, so let's cook, all right? Today I'm going to do and I think they're going to upload this for us, an easy black bean salad, okay? Now, if you've watched any of my cooking videos before, you know that I like easy, okay? And I like good food. And like I said, I love color. I love color and texture in my food. So this recipe, we're gonna use 2 cans of black beans. I don't know if you can see these. Now, I normally buy the low sodium. If you're watching your salt intake, you can buy black beans in the freezer section, and there's no sodium in it at all. So that would save you some sodium right off the bat, okay? These were easier for me at the time, so I got those. We're gonna use some corn, just frozen corn that I defrosted. I think this recipe would be really good with fresh corn, sawed off the cob, because corn is so good right now. So that's another option. We're going to use a little bit of balsamic vinegar. Any balsamic will work, okay? We just need a few tablespoons of that. And then I'm going to use a few fresh tomatoes. Again, I think if you have tomatoes in your garden, it would just take this recipe to a whole new level, okay? And we're going to use a little bit of lime along with the balsamic for the dressing. This is no oil. There's no oil at all in this recipe. We're going to use some cilantro for seasoning, and we're also going to use some onion, okay? More the sweet onion, okay, or whatever your preference is. So what I did is I pre-cut everything. Oh, and we also, I don't have it out here, but also water chestnuts, okay? I must have forgotten my water chestnut can, but it has, which I thought was kind of an unusual ingredient. That's what kind of intrigued me at first. So we're going to start with the beans. What they tell you to do is they say rinse them really well. You should, when you drain your beans, always rinse your beans, okay? Because that helps get some of the salt off of them, especially if they're canned, okay? Could you cook these in a pressure cooker? Of course, you could do that too. Definitely you'd save a little extra money cooking them from dry. So we're going to put the black beans in, and then we're going to chop up the tomato. Now, you also know, if you've watched my cooking demos before, I don't cook and I don't chop and talk very well, so I pre-chopped a lot of the stuff, okay? So here's a tomato. I think this would be really great with, like I said, really fresh, ripe tomatoes out of your garden, okay? And it says 1 large. I had smaller tomatoes, so I used 2. The beauty of doing this type of recipe is that you can mix and match. If you want the ratios to be different, change it, okay? It's not like baking where it has to be very precise. This is where you get to kind of do your thing and kind of make and kind of own it, make it be yours. Then it says the onion. So half an onion goes in. We're going to throw that in. That was another thing. Chopping an onion on camera, boy, that's brutal. So it's even bad up here with it's like a really strong onion. It smells really good. The brand they tell you is the Vidalia onion, which I think is a very fragrant, powerful onion, and I was able to find some today. Then we're going to do some water chestnuts, okay? Now these were sliced in the can already. For the samples that I made, I actually sliced them up smaller and diced them up even more because I thought it actually distributed better in the salad, okay? And then some cilantro. Now, a thing about cilantro, a lot of people either like it or they don't, okay? And in my family, it's divided. So I've kind of gotten this habit of chopping it really big so that people can pick it out easier, okay? So you do whatever best for you. I have found that the microgreens, kind of the cilantro sprouts, so they're not full-on cilantro, they're like little sprouts, are almost a gentler, a milder flavor. So it gives a cilantro flavor, but it's not overpowering, okay? So maybe look for those. I love sprinkling those on my salads and stuff. And but to be true to the recipe, I used regular cilantro. Now it said used a whole bunch, like that was a lot of cilantro, so I didn't use that much. I just chopped up what I thought was a reasonable amount, okay? And then we're gonna add the corn, which you can buy it frozen. I bought frozen simply because, again, there's no added salt, like if you were to buy it canned. Plus, the recipes I really enjoy is ones that I can have pantry ready. So what does that mean? It means I have the frozen corn in the freezer. I have most of these ingredients on hand always. So I can throw this together. When someone invites you to a potluck, you're like, oh, what am I going to take? Oh, I'm going to take this salad, right? And you can take it, and it'll be something you can eat if no one else is eating the way you're eating, right? So that's another trick, and I'll have to do another episode of this. It's like, what do you do when you're eating this plant-based, yet you're living in a carnivore world, right? You take your own food a lot of times, right? Okay, so we're going to mix this up. And as you'll see, the colors, like I said, I like to cook by color. It's really fragrant. And then we're going to go into the dressing part of it. And we're avoiding oil. I mean, you think about the freshness of these ingredients, you don't really need, I think oil kind of masks a lot of the ingredient flavors. And so I'm going to do 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. You guys can do more or less. This is, like I said, you kind of put it to your flavor. Now, one of the things I would probably add, just because I really I'd probably add a little garlic. So you got the vinegar in there, and we're also going to add some lime. So I love this little tool. This is like one of my favorite tools. Well, actually, I have 2 tools up here that I really like. This is my little, I use this a lot with lemons. I'll cook up a big thing of spinach, and I'll just top it with fresh lemon, and put that over it. Now, if you don't have, I also have, because I don't always have fresh limes, I also keep, some lime in a container that I can squeeze on. When I make homemade tortilla chips, I usually do that because I kind of coat them with a little bit of lime first, and then I bake them. Okay. And it tells you to zest it a little bit. So then I've got this little microplane, another clever little tool that you just sort of zest in some of the lime flavor into it. Oh, it smells very limey up here. It smells good. Now, this salad, I think like a lot of salads, if you let it sit over, kind of let the flavors blend, it would probably really have a lot better flavor. But like right now, you could easily take this. Now this recipe, I need to give credit. I didn't do that initially. It's by Anne and Jane Esselstyn. Now they're really prominent people. The father and the husband. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, he's a cardiologist. He's done a ton of research in plant-based nutrition and heart disease. And they're kind of one of the pioneers in the plant-based world. And so this is his wife and daughter. They do a really great YouTube cooking channel. They're pretty funny. This is one of their recipes. I think it's pretty good. So can you see this overhead? Can you see it? Pretty colorful, huh? Yeah. I wish you could smell it. It smells delicious. Okay, so for those in the audience today, I do have some samples I'm going to hand out. For those at home, I'm sorry. You have to just trust us that it's going to smell and taste good, okay? But I do want to give you the opportunity, if you want to unmute and ask a question, you can do that. Or maybe, I don't know if you can put it in the chat. They can give those to me as well. Anyone in the audience have a question? No? Okay.
You mentioned something about those meat substitute products.
Yes.
I haven't really researched it too much, but could you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yes.
Do you have any particular brand name that would be good?
Yes. So the question was about the meat substitute products that I mentioned kind of in passing. There's a whole bunch of different ones. You can buy plant-based meats. You can buy a lot of plant-based cheeses, right? They're usually under vegan cheeses and stuff. The vegan cheeses and dairy products often have a lot of oils, okay? But with the plant-based meats, if you're going to transition, there are some pretty good ones that I think do a good job. And Morningstar, I think, is one of the ones that I think you can buy in the freezer section. They have some like sausage type products, and they have Gardein, I think, is another one that maybe has meatballs and some chicken products. So just read your labels and see on the back, okay? And like I said, they're good transition foods. I know one of our ACC people, Victor, he really likes this Rocket Meats. It was another one, and we're going to have him come demo that at one point. But so is there some comments on? I can't see. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Can you make the salad the night before?
You can. That's a great. The question is, can I make the salad the night before? Yes. Yeah, and it would probably actually be really delicious chilled, and then the flavors will meld as well. That was a great question. Yeah, and definitely be able to do it in advance, right?
If instead of using canned beans, if we want to use, the beans that you buy, what would you have to do to, to cook it? How long?
Oh, like the dry beans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the question's about using dry beans versus canned beans. So people don't eat beans sometimes because they take a long time to cook, right? And it's just like, I want to eat right now. And the Instapot or a pressure cooker are really your friend when you're eating plant-based nutrition, eating this way. What I typically do is I'll do a big batch. I'll put them in my Instapot. I have an Instapot and a pressure cooker, but it still takes about an hour to cook them, okay? At least that's come up to pressure, and then it takes 30 minutes to cook them, depending on the bean. Some beans take a little bit longer, but it's still way faster than soaking them like my mom used to do. She'd soak them, overnight and then cook them for several hours in the pot, okay? So that's why I lean into the canned beans. I look for them on sale, and then I use them, and I rinse them, because I eat a lot of beans. They're such a good food for you, okay? I mean, they fill you up, they have so many vitamins, and they're a good source of protein as well. So, you know, but it's really, if you have the time, you'll definitely, dried beans, they're so inexpensive. And you can really, you know, they're a lot easier on your budget that way. Does that help?
Yeah, so before putting it in the Instapot, you don't need to prep it, you don't need to soak it or anything, because isn't there something in the beans that?
Well, if you cook them long enough, you want to make sure they're cooked. Okay, so I think what you're asking is you've heard maybe some things that beans can be toxic to you or something.
Right.
Yeah, and that's undercooked beans for sure. Okay, you want to make sure they're cooked fully. So I'll rinse them, and then I just put them in there with enough water, and when they come out, I rinse them again, and I've never been sick. Yeah, you know, I mean, if you think, that's a really interesting concept, because if you think about toxicity, we focus on certain things like in these beans we hear about, and there's one really well-published author that talks a lot about not eating any nightshade, you know, nightshade vegetables, and yet, you know, doesn't talk about the benefits that come with some of those, like tomatoes, right, and some of the other foods that they tell you to avoid, and then doesn't even address some of the other toxicities that we have in our lives, okay, of, you know, we all go out and breathe the air, right, it's toxic. So it's like, you have to kind of pick your poison, so to speak, you know? And I tend to lean into, some of these foods bring so many good things with them. It's sort of maybe the negativity, the toxicity that comes with it maybe is outweighed. I don't know, it's a personal preference for sure, yeah. Okay, does rinsing canned veggies help reduce the sodium, or is it soaked into them? They do take some of the sodium up, but it certainly helps to rinse them, okay? Certainly helps to rinse them. You know, if you're eating a low sodium diet, I would say cook them from, you know, dry ingredients, from a dry bean, or buy your black beans in the freezer section, okay? Because you can buy them frozen, and then you cook them, it's kind of that in-between canned and dried. You still have to cook them for about 20 minutes, but you don't have any sodium in there. So if you're really trying to lower your sodium, you know, but you think about what's in here based on, okay, if you eat a cup of this or a pretty big portion, you know, you have everything else in this salad doesn't have any sodium in it. We didn't use any salt at all. So, you know, if you can rinse off a little bit of it, it's still way less sodium than you would get if you were eating another processed food. Okay? Oh, wait. The spelling of the name. Yes, okay, so it's Jane. I'll just give you one of the names, because if you find one, you can find the other one. It's Ann, A-N-N, Esselstyn. It's E-S-S-E-L-S-T-Y-N. And her daughter's name is Jane. And Ann is married to a cardiac surgeon that wrote the book, How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. Really fabulous book. And I've seen them speak. They're really good at what they do. Yes, you can use any sort of bean, chickpeas. Oh, I'm sorry, people, can you guys see this questions in the audience? Okay, good. Can you use chickpeas instead of beans? Well, chickpeas are actually a bean, garbanzo beans, right? But they would be fabulous. So any bean you like, that's the beauty of beans. They're very substitutable. Okay, they really are. I love garbanzo beans. They're like one of my favorites. Okay, what is a good accompaniment for this dish? Well, they actually recommend you eat it with a cucumber open-faced sandwich. Okay, so to me, I would probably put this, I would eat it plain as a lunch salad. I might put it on a bed of lettuce and eat it that way as well. You could have it with your veggie burger. I make an awesome veggie burger. This would be a great side for that. Think about it, the thing I like about this as well, if you're going to a potluck and it sits out for a little while, you don't have to worry. There's nothing really in here that's going to spoil. There's no milk products. There's no meat products, nothing. So it's a good take-along dish as well. Okay. Did I have another question that I missed? What vegetable oil is the best for baking? Probably, okay, so I'm not the best person to ask about this because I don't use oil when I bake. I use applesauce, okay? Or there's a new product, there's something new called, those chickpeas we just talked about, the garbanzo beans? Well, you know how they come in your can, you drain off the juice, it's called aquafaba. You save it, and you can actually use that as an oil substitute in a lot of your baked goods. It's wild, right? But you can. But I use applesauce, I use aquafaba, I use other substitutes for oil. Now, if you don't want to do that, I would say probably canola oil would probably be one of your better ones for baking. Okay? How concerned should we be about the toxicity of GMO corn? Yeah, that's a loaded question. GMO is really a personal thing. Here's the thing about that, though. I think it's a really interesting argument. When I was in grad school, we did a deep dive into GMOs, and everybody had drawn their sides and the whole bit. When you track corn, people don't want to eat GMO corn, but they eat meat. Okay, they'll eat beef. And what do you think the cows eat? They eat a lot of that GMO corn or soybean. Actually, soybeans are one of the biggest crops with GMOs. So can you buy something that is non-GMO? By all means, do it if it's easy for you to do. In other countries do a way better job by limiting GMOs. Europe is one of them. So it's really a personal preference of what you're worried about. I'm more worried about the chronic related diseases that I know come with our Western diet. Okay, come with our processed foods, come with our dairy products and some of the saturated fat products that we consume multiple times a day. That's leading us to poor health. And if I just want to start there, okay, now I have plenty of clients that we get to a healthier spot, they get off their meds, and then we're like, let's go to the next level and let's starting to go maybe more organic and more non-GMO, all of that. But really, eating non-GMO is not going to save you from some of these chronic related diseases that you're getting because of the foods we're eating in our Western diet. Does that make sense? So really, you have to do what's good for you and really find what's going to work for your health, because everyone's health is different and what everybody focuses on is different. Okay, and so if you're already optimizing your health, you're already in a good spot, then yeah, let's look at that a little deeper and see about toxicities and see about GMOs. But if you're on a bunch of meds and your health isn't going the way it is, we have a bigger issue we want to address. Okay, make sense? Okay, any other questions? Oh, is this salad sweet? I don't know. I really have to taste it and see. I did sample it, and it's not really sweet. The corn adds. This is kind of what's cool about it. The corn adds a sweetness to it, but then you have the lime and the balsamic vinegar that adds a little bit of tangy to it. So it's kind of in between, I guess. You have to try. You have to make it to see how it is. So I saw another question coming up, Sean.
Yeah.
Okay. We can hand these out, I guess, huh? Should we wait till the end? We'll have our taste testers tell you if it's sweet or not. Okay. Do you use commercial grade, traditional condiment grade balsamic vinegar? Okay. So I don't even know the whole balsamic vinegar thing, I mean, there's so many different levels. You would probably be able to tell me, and I'd love to have that conversation with you. I just somehow this ended up at my house. Someone came and brought it with them, and so this is what I used. I typically like to look and see if it has sugar in it, and I avoid that. but I know there's a whole range of balsamic vinegars and flavors. So if you're kind of a connoisseur, go with what you like, okay? And I would say go with the higher level for sure, because I'm sure it has, a better flavor to it, okay? But I know it gets a little pricey too, okay? What is my take on plant-based yogurt? So it's great. There's soy yogurt, right? Remember, if you're adding in, if you're using the fruit sweetened ones, there's probably added sugars in it, so be aware of that. There's almond milk yogurt as well, okay? And I think Silk has one. Avoid the coconut milk ones, okay? Because coconut milk would have some saturated fat, and that's what we're trying to limit. Now, is it a lot or a little? I don't know, that's what you have to decide for yourself. What are your goals? Okay, it always comes back to what are your goals and what do you want to let into your pantry, so to speak, or your refrigerator. If you find those taste better to you and you're willing to eat that and then not something else to keep your keep your numbers healthy, then that's completely up to you. But I think they're fine. Typically how I have my clients do it is if they want to use a soy yogurt, they will add a homemade granola to it. They'll add fruit to it. So they're not just eating the yogurt, they're adding some fiber, because it has no fiber, okay? Maybe a little bit of fiber if they put some fruit in it, but you want to add in some fresh berries. You want to add in some homemade granola to add in those oats, right? To give it some more fiber to it. So that really it has more staying power, and that fiber is your friend when it comes to so many things, okay? And so you can, or eat it with your oatmeal in the morning, something like that. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions? Okay, do I see any thumbs up out there? Okay. I got thumbs up from my taste testers in the audience. When my kids were at home, we used to do either thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a sideways thumb. So we got thumbs up. So the salad. So this is going to be a keeper. Okay. In my family, I'll probably keep this recipe in my recipe book and try it again because it's been audience approved. So. Okay, so I don't think there's any more questions. I do want to thank ACC for having me here, okay? They are such gracious hosts, and it's always so much fun to come and work with them and bring this information to you. Thank you for everyone that's online watching me. I wish I could see you all. I'm so glad you're here. And we have an audience today. Thank you to the audience for being here. It was so awesome. Yeah. Great time. So I'll be back probably next quarter, and hopefully we'll see you then. Keep putting veggies in your diet. Bye, everyone.